y'all, and welcome back to another video of My Creative Life with Kelssweetie, where we read books and make art. We are going over my April wrap-up today. I'm really happy with it was weird. I feel like I'm saying that every month, but this year so far has been, if you've checked out my Q1 recap, you may understand what I'm talking about. So I won't spend too much time explaining it, but this year has just been very interesting. It has been both a great reading year so far, but also a strange one, because some of the things that I'm liking or gravitating to are not what I would have expected, and some of the things that I'm just not loving this are things that I would absolutely love in any other circumstance. So I'm just really confused with what's happening, but we're going with the flow. I finished around five books this month, which is great for me. As I'm always saying, my low average is around 4. My high average has been around 6. I mean, we're not counting January when I read 7 books and I was on something. So I'm hitting in the middle. That's good. If I finish around 5 books a month, I'm good. I also have a DNF. I definitely have a DNF. As I'm recording this, April's not necessarily over, but the book that I was going to end it on wasn't liking it, so we'll get into that. And I have 2 books that are still in progress. I'm not DNFing them. They're just books that need to be read over time. They're not let me move through them. And I thought I would still include them because I do really want to talk about them because they have some really great things in them. I've never done that before, but I still felt like I shouldn't get down on myself because I didn't finish these books and they still have really great things to talk about. So let's get into the intro and then get into these books. It's going to probably be a longer one today as per usual. So get your water, your beverage, or whatever. Get to work if I'm body doubling you right now. And I'm going to see you on the other side of the intro. In the intro, I this month was weird. It was weird. I don't think that now sitting here and looking at this stack of books, I'm it was a good reading month. But when I was in the month, it didn't feel that great. And I also I feel like that's because April was such a long month for me. It was my birthday month. And it wasn't long, I don't think, because I was doing so much every weekend or every day for my birthday. But it felt like it was all over the place. I feel like at the beginning of the month, me and my partner hit Disneyland. I was having issues focusing on work and content and getting things out. I was supposed to be doing Old School April, which I was doing very heavily at the top of this month. And I feel like I've sprinkled it in as the month has gone on, but there was just so many other things happening, so many other things I needed to get done that got in the way of me going really hard on Old School April. There were some posts that just didn't make it out. And I was running behind on Night Terror. I was running behind on my 9 to 5 stuff. Videos were coming out, but I don't know how that was happening because I feel like I wasn't getting work done. So April just has been a very weird month for me. I'm really actually looking forward to May starting to kind of have that fresh, feeling like you're starting something fresh type of energy, because April has been just so strange. I feel like I've been doing so many things, but at the same time running in place. I don't know. And the same thing went for my book reading this month. You will see that this is probably one of the most mixed up book wrap-ups I usually do, because April is one of those months where I'm really free to do whatever I want. I don't know if that's going to be the same case next year, as I found out that April is Autism Awareness Month as well as Arab American Heritage Month, and I think both of those are really important. But I don't know if I'm going to base a whole month reading off of both of those backgrounds. I can only really fit in what I can fit in, and I shouldn't also get so caught up that I don't read something that I don't like. So that's an explanation as to why this stack is going to be so weird today. Speaking of weird, let's jump right into it. My first read of the month, which y'all, if you follow me on Instagram, you've already seen the review for this because I had to get it out there, was Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. Y'all, it's worth the hype. Now, I will say that I did find an audiobook for this. Now, it is not the original audiobook. It's actually the immersive audio tunnel, which I cannot recommend enough. If you guys are going to read this, read from that. It's also really great because it's from the voice actor who does the audiobooks. He started an audio immersive company where they read usually lit RPG books where it's very, very interactive. Like, there is a full cast and there are sound effects, and in this there were commercials, like you were almost like watching it, which was hilarious to me because there are so many pop culture references. Like when they were doing all of the recaps in here of what was happening during the Dungeon Crawler show, it sounded like sportscasters, but not just any sportscasters. They made them kind of sound like they were Shaq and Charles Barkley, which I only know. Y'all, I'm not a sports girl, all right? Like, let's not get too excited. But having a partner who loves the Lakers down and loves basketball, and honestly, I have found a new appreciation for watching the game, and so I'll watch it every now and then. I'm not sitting here losing sleep over missing games, but I've found some enjoyment in watching basketball. I also know sports commentators because of being interested in some of my partner's interests, okay? If he's gonna hear me talk about books all day, I can at least have an inkling of what's happening in sports. So it was really hilarious to me kind of hearing them go back and forth when they were like basically in this, and it was also very funny to me to even know that that's who they were imitating, and they sound really great. I loved Princess Donut, the cat in here. Apparently I was talking to somebody and they was like, yeah, Princess Donut's like supposed to be like a girl cat, and I'm like, no, Princess Donut is not a girl cat. Princess Donut is a very queer boy cat. He's a gay cat. That's what it is, because the audiobook narrator does the voice of Princess Donut. They don't bring in another audio actor. And so I'm just kind of like, no, that's Princess Donut's voice. It sassy, pride, gay man is living inside of Princess Donut, and I love that, and I'm not changing that idea. So that's definitely Princess Donut's a diva. It's one of the girls. So I did really love this. I was surprised because it's stupid. It's stupid, humorous stuff, but I was hoping with everything that I was hearing about it that it was going to give Ready Player One, which it did. It did give Ready Player One in the sense of just something fun. The whole world has gone to shit. You know, it's been completely flattened and turned into a labyrinth for the sick enjoyment of the rest of the universe. And it's extremely, extremely gory and bloody. I would only recommend this to other horror and like hardcore sci-fi readers who are not easily offended, is what I can say. I would not recommend this to a romance girl. I would not recommend this to somebody who I know is like reading really serious lit fic or really serious like nonfiction. This, I feel like, is the horror reader's hilarious break because it's extremely bloody. Numerous times, this man is crushing people with his feet. He's killing people with his feet, okay? So, if I had heard that, being the reader that I am, I don't think that I would have picked up this book, to be honest, but I do feel like, one, the immersive audio really put me in there, and I needed the break. I would recommend this as well if you're more of a serious reader. Read this to kind of give your brain a break, like to get a good laugh out and give your brain a break, and also don't take it so seriously. I think if I was there's no message in here. This is literally just, hey, I want a good laugh. That is literally all this book is, and if you go into that knowing that, you will be fine and you'll have a good time. If you go into this thinking anything other than that, you are going to think this is the most stupid thing that you've ever read and you lost brain cells. Just calling it what it is. But I had a great time reading it, and I really would recommend it to anyone who, like I said, isn't really easily offended, because I could see how if you're reading this, you're like, this is stupid. But I personally really liked it. It had Master Splinter-esque coaches in it. It had all llamas who deal drugs. It's stupid, but it's a stupidly great time. And honestly, it is well written. Like, the humor in it is definitely something that you have to get used to, but the writing in it is not dumb. It's very descriptive, and Matt Denman has really built out this world and has thought of really hilariously ingenious ways to kind of go about this series. So I will say that as well. It is written well. It's just the humor that if it's your type of humor or if you're ready for it or whatever, you're going to love this book. If you're not, if it's not your type of, you're going to hate it. The entire book is going to be so stupid to you. So that is my main thing, but I gave this 5 stars. I know, I'm surprised that this was in 5 stars considering my top 5 stars of the year so far was like Chain Gang All Stars, and for this to be sitting right next to it, I contain multitude, y'all. So that is my spew about this because I had such a great time with it. I cannot say that enough. The next book I read was not as great of a time, and I actually had a lot of problems with it, which I was surprised about because I was recommended this book by my mom, who loved it but had an issue with the ending. And then I kept on seeing it everywhere, and I absolutely loved the cover, and I had picked it up during the hardcover sale back in January. And so I was like, okay, I'll read this. Sky Full of Elephants. This was actually the Sweetheart Book Club sweet read for April. If you have not checked us out, I cannot say it enough. Check us out on Fable. They'll be linked down below so you can see where we're currently picking our May book club sweet read, which will be in regards to an AANHPI author. And I'm kind of surprised by what's winning currently. So you can go check that out, see what we're reading. And yeah, this was one of the novels for this month. And this is a very complex book. I think that Sibo Campbell took on a lot. A very, very big challenge. They basically, and it's something with huge epic scope. White people end up one day just walking into the nearest body of water and drowning themselves all at once. No one knows what's happened. And that's the basis of where this starts. Our 2 main characters are a father and his estranged daughter who grew up in a white family, even though she was mixed. And he had been in jail when all of this had happened. I had a lot of issues. I feel like I had more issues than things I liked about this book. I think that there were some things that I liked. I do feel like the idea that it was born from was very interesting, like this sudden occurrence and these conversations of race, especially in America, because it only happens in America, which that was a whole plot hole in my opinion as well. But I did not too much care for the way that Sibo Campbell tried to kind of talk about some of these issues in here. So first and foremost is a few months after all of this happens, Black people have inherited America, and we don't reinstate another president or any form of government whatsoever. It's not even that, oh, we abolished this, so let's put something new in. We haven't done anything, apparently, which that didn't sit right with me because then that suggests that we're ungovernable, or we don't, even our ancestors had no governing, which is a lie. There was a government put in place. It was not the English government that we have, or that we currently are sitting in here in America, or whatever that is, democracy, but it was a government there was governing of some kind happening. The fact that we took over or whatever the case is, and one wasn't put back in, anything was put back in place, it's kind of wild. Black people end up stealing homes, which I guess was the idea of reclamation of land. Again, it felt like the Wild West in a really bad type of viewpoint. I mean, there was even one point where they're talking about Charlie, the main character. It's talking about driving to go see this daughter, Sydney. And he passes a McDonald's, which was overtaken by somebody's grandmother who was slanging biscuits out of the McDonald's. She was cooking outside of McDonald's now. And I'm like, something about this gives Tyler Perry. It's just, I did not care for it. I did not care for that idea. They go to this airport, and Flights are now free, like travel. That's one thing that I think was an interesting concept that wasn't explained enough, was the idea of traveling and freedom and exploration becomes a very big concept, which I think was something interesting that wasn't explored enough. Because as people of color, we do feel confined to certain safe areas. You cannot just decide, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to travel across the US and not have a plan. I'm just getting in the car and I'm just gonna go. The reason why you can't do that is because you may find yourself, if you're not planning your gas trips, if you're not planning what cities and towns you're stopping in along the way, you can find yourself easily getting in some mess because there's still cities and states and towns, there's still sundown towns. Like, once you get into a certain area of the US, you need to be planning. Even when growing up, when we were going from Ohio to Atlanta to go meet family members, we would plan out, like, okay, what trips are we taking? Where are we stopping for gas? It ain't gonna be in Tennessee. And the one time that we did stop, we had an encounter at a gas station and honestly was probably I am lucky enough to say it was probably one of the few actual overt racist encounters I've ever experienced. But I guess that's something that I wish was explored more. That this idea of actual freedom of travel is still one that, and freedom itself is still one that is very, very nuanced, is still an issue, is still a conversation amongst people of color. And once all of the white people were no longer there, it seemed that Black people were obsessed with seeing everything, which I think was interesting but wasn't touched on. And so now airplanes are free, air travel is completely free, but it's a 7-day thing. So you go in there into the terminal and you can only stay there 7 days. After 7 days, you got to leave and you've got 30 days before you can come back. And the idea is that you got 7 days to figure out where you're going and get there. But you realize once you get in why they give that time limit, because it feels like this bazaar where people are playing spades and gate terminals have been turned into these hangout areas that it seems like, and people are making food and frying chicken in the airplane terminal was wild. There were bits and pieces that I was like, this feels authentic and interesting. And those things weren't explored, but the things that were explored were the things that felt, honestly, very stereotypical and harmful around Black people. You also see hardly any other cultures throughout the book. They are spotted throughout. One of my favorite characters in here is Zoo. They're non-binary, and they're Mexican and Black, which I really loved, and they had some really amazing quotes in here, to be honest. Them and their father. They weren't explored whatsoever. Their backstory wasn't explored. We hear nothing of anyone else who is Latino except for the aunt who ends up marrying a Latino man, but we don't even go into that story whatsoever either. There's one other person who's indigenous who shows up somewhere when they get on a plane, but that's it. And it's weird because at one point Charlie mentions that seeing other, every now and then we'll see other cultures and people, but we don't really see them too much. And it's like, okay, are you gonna explain that? Is it just white people who walked into the water? Or was it other folks? Am I supposed to just believe that everybody who wasn't Black just left? That doesn't make any sense because there are plenty American-born immigrants, who come from immigrant parents, my partner is second gen, Latino. Sure, he may, why would they all of a sudden leave? That doesn't make sense. And in all honesty, by the end of the novel, you still don't get any answers on that. And that was upsetting for me because I personally, and this is my personal feelings, I feel like the conversation of racism in America is very selfishly controlled with the idea of it only pertaining to Black and white people. We take up so much space on the topic, and as if it doesn't pertain to many other people of color within the country. I just think that that's the case. I think that this book does that. Sydney, his daughter, huge amounts of self-hatred. Racist self-hatred within her. She she was raised by a white family and has those values ingrained in her, and a fear of Black people within her, a disgust of Black people within her, a disgust of herself because she is Black, because growing up and feeling other than, it is both upsetting and pitiful. Like, in the same moments that I was so upset with her, I would also be so pitying her, because I'm just like, you don't love yourself, and that's so upsetting and sad. And you don't get any resolution to that by the end of the book either. The only person that I felt I really enjoyed their story was Charlie and his arc. He felt like he actually had an arc. No one else did. Even Sydney by the end. Again, I've said that, like, I wish I knew more about Zoo, because I felt like Zoo was this middle point in many different ways and would have been an interesting conversation, would have been thought-provoking. Instead, I just kind of ended this feeling a bit disappointed. I think it brings up some interesting questions, but it doesn't answer any of them. And in some cases, it even answers them with an answer that I feel like is a little short-sighted. I want to give their roses just because I feel like this is really epic skill, and I'm trying to keep that in mind, that, like, you took on a lot. But at the end of the day, if you're going to do it, then just, do it correctly. Or, I don't know, it may also be a generational thing, because my mom loved this book. So she's Gen X, I'm a millennial. We have very different ideas on Blackness and racism because of growing up in the generations that we did. And I think that that's something also to keep in mind when reading this book. I don't know if I recommend it. I don't know if I fully recommend it. I feel like I'm at a kind of a loss on it. I kind of tell people, because some people had asked about it because they had started reading it and said they also felt like the beginning felt a little bit stereotypical. Here are my addendums on why I didn't like it. I don't think that it was horrible, because it did bring up a lot of conversations, but I don't feel like I really enjoyed reading this book, and I was kind of upset with where it went. So that was this one. I think I gave this like a 2.5, 2.75. Maybe even I gave it a 3. But now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, no, I think it needs to go down. So yeah, that was the situation with this one. I spent so much time talking about this one because I've been seeing it a lot. And I don't feel like I've heard anybody really talk in depth about what actually happens in this book. And I don't think that I've also seen anybody really talk about, like, some of the issues that really are in this book. And not just, why people kill themselves, like, one day. It's just like, there's far more things in here that I feel like should have been discussed than just that. Moving forward, though, there will be another one that was an issue in this book. I didn't DNF this, so it was enjoyable enough for me to entertaining enough for me to keep reading. But that's my piece on that one. The next book I finished was actually far more enjoyable. And that was Evil in Me by Brahm. I know, I found a Brahm that I like, y'all. I'm so happy, because the fact that I did not like Slewfoot, it hurt me. It upset me, because everyone I know loves Slewfoot, and I read it and I did not enjoy it. And I was upset because I really love Brahm's artwork, and I still don't really want to get rid of Slewfoot based off of just the artwork that's in it. But I don't know. I feel like that's not enough of a reason to keep a book that I really felt was really boring. And so I tried again with Evil in Me, thinking, this is during the 80s, it's punk rock, it's demon possession. This should be interesting. And I also really, really loved, Brahm went in a very, very different direction than his usual work in this one. And so I was hoping that this was at least the winner, and it was for me. Now, I know that some people have reviewed this and said that it felt a little YA to them. I didn't necessarily feel that. I mean, at the end of the day, our main character, Lucy, is, 21, 22? Or 24. I think she's 24, actually. But regardless, she's still really in that age bracket where, like, well, she is kind of a kid, and she hasn't left her small town ever. So, yeah, she's still arguing with people and exes and whatever that she had dated back when she was in high school, because she's only known those people, like, her entire life. So for me, I didn't feel like it felt young. I honestly felt like it was just like a fun time, and wasn't too serious. So our main character, Lucy, ends up becoming possessed by a ring that has the basically soul of Lord Sheobeth in it, and it's basically the entrance for her to bring hell on earth. And that's the story regarding it. By the ending, though, that's not I'm not certain if that's still the case. Lord Sheobeth is basically, I think she's like Lilith's daughter. And so, of course, as we know with even Lilith, there's a little bit of rewriting that happened there because of like their relation to religion and women and what makes a woman evil and all of these different things. And I thought that was really interesting. I also really loved Beale in here. Beale is a shade, not a demon, but a shade. And that was interesting. I think there's a lot of learning things in here in regards to Judaism and like the more mystical portions of Judaism that I didn't realize before. I was surprised that the story starts off at a synagogue and that there was anything about Judaism in here at all. And it was more so the more mystical portions of it, not the Orthodox portions. So very much demons and lords and shades and evoking spirits and wizards and things like that, which are I've never learned about, but is actually really interesting to me to now kind of look into. And I also felt like, you know, of course, in these times that we're in at this current juncture, the way that it was talked about in this book did not feel like I'm trying to convert you or to have you join this. It just felt like plot, which I appreciated. I think sometimes when religion is brought into books, it's sometimes you can tell that the person is either trying to make that religion seem better than what it is, maybe, or I don't even know if it's even that, but it just plays too big of a part. Whereas this felt like just a plot role, it being, you know, part of any of those beliefs, and even her, Josh, the guy who had the ring in the first place, her neighbor, her caretaker that she was taking care of, and everything. He's kind of like, I only got this stuff because my brother was into this and everything. I wasn't like a good Jewish person and everything who knew all of these stories, but I had to have it because they had to get rid of it out of the synagogue because it was scaring the kids or something along those lines, which I think that all of the people in here felt very realistic in my opinion and fallible and had problems, and none of them were perfect people, but they were very well-rounded people in my opinion. Even her mother had issues and problems even by the time they kind of figure out some things by the end. I still personally felt like her mom had a lot of issues that she still should be accountable for. And as always, I really do like characters who feel well-rounded. So it's not just, oh, everything you do I love, but you have things that are wrong with you still, and I can still appreciate them. So I know that didn't tell you too much about what happens in here, but that was everything that I really did love about the story. Now she has to use song to try and spell up this energy to get the ring off of her, because the ring is essentially possessing her to do very bad, evil things and wants her to kill. And not only that, but like she's trying to outrun all of these different people who are just absolute evil. One of them being Dick, he's a dick. All right, he's horrible. He prefers you to call him Richard. No, he's a serial killer, and he's disgusting, and he's horrible, and he's on the run to find her. Now, I know now we're getting really into We Sold Our Souls territory by Grady Hendrix, which I didn't too much care for last year, but where that book fell short in me caring about the characters at all, this one didn't. I cared about almost every, I of course didn't care about Dick, but like he felt like a person. You know, he felt like, oh, I hate you. You know, like I felt some type of way. All of We Sold Our Souls, I felt no type of way about those characters at all, which was an issue because that's why by the end of it, I was like, okay, whatever. And in this book, it does also do what that book did, which was dual point of views, where you're getting two timelines at the same time and you're wondering when they're going to converge. It did do that. That is where it did fall short by the end. I think throughout the book, I really did like how they were doing it, unlike what they did in We Sold Our Souls, where I felt like they were telling each other's timelines far too long before they started to converge, and then by the time it happened, it felt like it was a way to get out of a plot hole rather than actually a part of the story. They did not do that in here. I think that the combination of these two stories and where they met up ended up being something really interesting, but it happened near the end of the book, and it almost felt like that's it. When everything kind of came together, it felt short-lived. which was upsetting because you were kind of on this ride for the entire time of this like whole cat and mouse thing that was happening with the serial killer who was tracking her down because of, you know, having all of this possession or whatever, of wondering why he wanted her in the first place. That was kind of a downfall for me. A lot of the downfall had to do with the ending, to be honest, because that felt short-lived, even though the ending and the beginning of this novel is where the horror and gore come in very, very heavily. Very, like, out the gate, it tells you what it is, and when it's leaving, it tells you exactly what it was. But I also felt like the way, I don't want to give too much away because I do recommend reading this book, but by the time it was at the very end, we end on Dick Richards' last entry. That's the ending of the book. And I felt like it was useless. And in all honesty, it didn't say anything, like, at all to me. So I don't know. And even with the ending, where I think that they just left a very big cliffhanger, considering what was the whole buildup of the entire book. And then when it ends up happening, you're kind of just like, so is that it? It flitters away. I know that sounds crazy. I don't want to get too far into it because I do recommend it. And I think by giving you too much information about the ending, obviously it'll spoil the ending. But that was where the ending was where my issues kind of lied. The only other location where I had a problem with anything had to do with her best friend. And that was Tina. Tina Tang, who is Asian. She's mixed Vietnamese to be exact. She's a badass and I loved her as a character. I think as a character, Brahm did an amazing job with building out Tina so that she didn't feel stereotypical per se. You know, this is taking place during the 80s. Her father was in the war and taught her a lot of moves for protection. And her mother was like this tall German lady. So she's like a force to be reckoned with, and I absolutely loved her. I loved her energy. I loved all of it. The only real issue that I have in regards to how he wrote her, you had to name her Tina Tang. I hate, guys, we have to do better. Because the alliterations when naming our Asian characters is just, we're over it. You know, this is Cho Chang 101, you know, as far as the Harry Potter series is concerned. Don't get me started. But, you know, I was disappointed because off of something as small as that, but honestly is something as big as, you know, Black people always be having Dante. Oh, that's Dante. That's Desiree. That's, you know, some name that... my name's Kelsey. So, you know, I think that it seems like a small detail, but it is a detail when you write a character so great, in my opinion, that didn't feel stereotypical, didn't lead into any like sort of Asian stereotypes, and then you name them that, you ruin it. It's something small, but I think it means a lot. And it's unfortunate because I really did love that character. And I think she was the most well-rounded character in this book as well. I loved it still. All in all, I think I gave this one like a 3.75. Or maybe it was even a full 4. I really did have a great time with this. And again, the artwork in here, Brahm did something very different with what he usually does, in the sense of all these saturated colors in a good portion of like writing the 80s portions, and even like, of course, the cover of Lucy. And when he kind of wrote Vito in, he's a bit more saturated than like, I know that glare is killing me. The saturation here. Now, of course, like Lord Shiabeth, who's opposite, is definitely in that traditional color scheme and like those very traditional painting tones. And the rest of the demons in here kind of do the same here. Like when he's doing Beale and this witch demon. But I do think that in some ways he really did something very different than like his usual stuff. And I really loved it because this is saturated color. So I'm so happy that I ended up liking this book. And again, I just don't think that it felt YA to me personally. But that could just be me. I'm still going to keep it. Even though that ending shot it for me. I'm not going to lie. All right, let's move on though, because we're making a lot of time here. I know I talked a lot of mess about Sky Full of Elephants, but at the end of the day, I still didn't feel like I necessarily wasted my time reading that book. I still was like, there's still things here that are redeemable. There are still moments in here that I think are thought-provoking. And honestly, will I keep this in my library? Maybe. I don't know. But I did think my time wasn't wasted. What did waste my time? Come closer. This wasted my time. This is a novella and it wasted my time. Everyone in the world I know is constantly recommending this book, and I do not know why. I do not have a single clue as to why. I think I rated this a 2, and that's because, as y'all know, 2 is like, yo, that's probably getting donated score for me. I don't usually rate a 1 unless, like, you literally, like, were super, super racist to me or homophobic or whatever the case is. Like, I don't even know what would ever be a 1. I might be too nice, but this was stupid to me. I know that sounds horrible, but it was because the main character, I don't even know if I know what's her name? Amanda. Amanda's her name. This has to do with possession. And the possession that ends up happening was completely avoidable. It was absolutely avoidable. There were so many signs that it was happening. There's so many signs that this being was trying to possess her in the first place, and she did nothing to stop it. She let it in. She just kept on, she was like, it was saying, like, let me in. Okay. Oh, it's my imaginary friend from my childhood coming back, or maybe I'm regressing or something. Maybe something horrible is happening, and that's why I'm thinking of this. What? You were seeing things, they're hearing things. The dog that loved you at one point, the stray dog that loved you at one point, can't even see you now. Like, there were so many situations where it was like something bad's happening. And she continued on like nothing bad's happening. And even the fact that, like, this book literally starts where it's clear that she's starting to be possessed. Like, the whole book is just the descent of her being possessed. You don't even have a before the possession. There were also many moments in here that I felt like were low-key homophobic and racist. Not overtly so, but enough for me to go, wait, what? Let me look that up. What did she say? I had to look up if Sarah Grant was queer. She's not. I mean, at least outwardly seen, she has a husband. I mean, could that mean she's bisexual? Certainly so. But it's not I'm a raging lesbian and I can say the F word. Because in the beginning, there's 2 situations where she was very, in a way, like, and character or not, it's written, felt homophobic or used a slur towards gay men in regards to her boss in some of the first pages, which was wild. And then later on in the story, she calls some receptionist like a flaming something or another, or she used some other term that just did not sound right at all. I didn't, it was something that felt very, you're not gay enough to say that type of thing. So, and as far as like the kind of microaggression racism that I kind of felt in here, it had to do with the monster who was possessing her herself. There were a couple of situations where she was talking about her hair being dreaded and that she had dreads and that it was black hair. And so I'm starting to think, okay, is her hair like black? Like, my hair's black and is it dreaded? Like, is this monster black? A black person? And the way that dreads were even being talked about, it was more so in this, does she have her hair dreaded? Or is it because she's this like disgusting thing that doesn't ever wash herself because she's full of evil or whatever the case is? Like, it didn't, her hair being black or whatever also didn't help that conversation either. Like, are you talking about dreads as if they're disgusting? Or are you talking about her hair being matted because she doesn't take care of herself? Again, these things may seem small, like the Tina Tang situation, but these are microaggressions that matter when you're a person of color reading a horror book or reading a book, period, where you're seeing things that are, like, off. And I think I looked it up because I was kind of feeling like, is it just me? And there are numerous, like, I've found other reviews where some people were just like, it turned me off when she used a slur and a kind of outdated term towards gay men in this book. And I agree. I think in the end, you know, she ends up becoming possessed, which that wasn't a surprise because you could feel that she wanted the possession. She kind of just let it happen. And I think that at the end, I think that it was even saying that, like, that was the point, that she did let it happen because she had this emptiness inside of her, or this, like, sadness, or just boredness, or whatever, to let this thing inside her and basically completely ruin her life, like, completely tailspin it out of control. And I just don't feel like I was impressed by that. I feel like there wasn't a real message in it, and I wasn't a fan. I didn't have a great time reading it, and I know that I didn't have a great time reading it because whenever I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've gotten so far in this book, I just need to finish it now because I'm too far to be like, I'm gonna DNF it, and I hit that 1.75 speed or that 2 speed, oh, I know I'm over it, and it's going to get at least a 2 from me. So this will probably end up getting donated whenever I do my yearly unhaul. I really don't understand why anybody's recommending this book at all, and I just truly was not a fan. And maybe I should have known when I saw at the top that the credit was Perfect Horror Novel by Paul Tremblay, because he wrote Cabin at the End of the World, which I ended up hating as well. So if he thought this was perfect, then maybe I wasn't going to like it in the first place. It wasn't at all for me, and I'm kind of upset about that. Because, there were so many situations, there were just plot holes and stuff in it. It wasn't enjoyable. My next book also started off as something that wasn't too enjoyable. And now the ending ended up really picking it up, and I think it saved the whole rating. And that was The Unworthy by Agustina Basterrica. This started off very slow and in all cases boring. I'm going to be honest with you. It was a very no plot, all vibes, while our main character is living in this cult that's supposedly has nothing to do with religion, like traditional Christianity or Catholicism, but it's essentially that. It's essentially some sadistic, like, convent, essentially, where they all are trying to be worthy enough. And there's only one man who lives there, who's the head of it all, which I'm just like, okay, you're gonna tell me that this isn't organized religion? Come on now. This isn't organized, like, Christian religion. You know, the ending of this was predictable, but in a way that wasn't even thought-provoking as somebody who reads a lot of things that have to do with toxic masculinity and those types of conversations. So I could see, it's not to say that it was predictable and not, like, important. It just was predictable for somebody who reads a lot of this type of literature. I will say that, like, there were some things at the end that happened in regards to her and this other character that I was a little disappointed that it didn't move forward, but I was kind of like, that's because halfway through this novel, our main character ends up meeting this other person, and it is far better. Like, I became far more interested in this book once that happened, because it felt like there was actual plot. Lucia is the person that they end up finding. I don't know what Lucia is. She may be the second coming of God. Who knows? Because there's something happening there as far as her and the rest of the world and all of this, and the relationship between her and our main character ends up blooming. So it's very queer, which we love. We love that. It essentially, to describe this, it is suffering, pain, suffering, two queer nuns. Suffering, pain, suffering, hardship. That is this. That's this book. That's the review on this book. I don't know. And I talked to a friend who loved it, who actually, well, not loved it, but she really did like it. And she was just talking about how it's this representation of toxic masculinity and how it can survive even when there aren't men. Even if there aren't men there, that toxic masculinity, violence can still thrive. And I was sitting there and I was like, okay, that context is helpful. But as somebody who's I need plot, the first half of this book was plotless. It was just suffering and suffering and suffering and torture. All of the women in this cult essentially just want to see the other women suffer so that they can be the best. And it was kind of catty. It was catty, very much so, which I was just like, ladies, where's the community? Where's the sisterhood? Because it ain't here. I don't know. And then once we got to the end, which I won't ruin it for anybody because I didn't hate the book. I just had problems with it. Like, I just had problems, especially with that first half. Once I got into the second half, it became far more enjoyable for me to read, and I was far more interested to pick it up, and I finished it far faster. And so I don't know. I think this was a 3 for me. I ended up putting it at 3 because it really was middle of the road on me enjoying it. It literally, half of it I hated, and the other half was good enough for me to be like, oh, this is interesting. Got it. I also liked hearing more about the back, as our character remembers more and more of her life before the cult. I also enjoyed that. That happens a lot near the back half as well, in her life with the tarantula kids, and even with her mother before she died. Like, this is very much environmentalist horror, because it all takes place in this world after we've basically burned up all of our resources, and things just start, the ozone layer has essentially, like, is non-existent and all of that. So that was also interesting. I think that there are a lot of things in this book that are good. I just think that the first half of it could have been knocked down. Like, even if it was the first 15% instead of the first 45, I could have been, like, far more excited to recommend this, or even could have pushed it to a 4. But instead, it felt kind of at the beginning like it was just, I just want to talk about suffering and pain in a very poetic, flowery way. Like, very mixed emotions on this. Just like there were very mixed emotions on Sky Full of Elephants. Like I said, this month was weird, y'all. It truly was. Continuing with the weirdness, I had 2 DNFs this month. Sucker and Such Sharp Teeth. Both were DNFs. I know, that's more DNFs than I usually ever do. Like, I usually have maybe 3 DNFs a year, and I'm on a roll, because both of these were too boring for me to continue reading. Starting with Sucker by Daniel Hornsby. I'm upset that I didn't enjoy this because I really did love this cover. It's gonna get donated. It's 1% fiction. It's because our main character is some trust fund baby who ends up taking a job because his dad's saying he's going to pull the plug on his money, and he runs some private music label off of his dad's money. He doesn't have his own. And he ends up meeting this other, this, like, past college friend. And she's done really well for herself in medicine because she had cancer. She somehow figured out the cure to cancer, or something along those lines. I'm pretty positive that it has to do, she's a vampire, and that it has to do with basically these things of, like, turning people with cancer vampires, or something along those lines. I don't know the science. Or even doing blood transfusions amongst, like, cancer patients and vampires. I don't know. I'll never know. Because the amount of, oh my god, I don't have money, or the references that only, like, really matter in certain, like, groups. Like, this very much gave Cleopatra and Frankenstein to me, where it was just like, you guys are sitting in a place of privilege and have the audacity to talk about things like you're suffering more than anybody in the world, and it's the things that you're saying you're suffering from are things that aren't problems at all, actually. Or you're sitting here and you have this air to the way that you're speaking that really makes you think that you're better than anybody else and you can get away with anything whatsoever. The main character just had he was just air. He didn't have any heft to him, any, like, solidity to him. As he talked to people, it felt like he thought that they were lesser than him. Which I was just sitting there like, I'm not going to care what happens to you in this book. And in all honesty, nobody that's shown up in this book so far. I got about 15-20% into it. And I was like, nobody's shown up yet that I would care at all about anything happening to them. So I'm going to probably give this book up because it just felt like 1% fiction. And in these times of the oligarchy, I really don't care too much. So this will get donated, which is sad because I really did love this cover. And it's not even that I don't like the idea of, like, this cancer technology with vampires and stuff. It was mainly the main character just sucks. The main character is just, I've met the main character. I've met the main character when I went to college with trust fund babies. I've met the main character working the music business who think that they own the world and are, again, trust fund babies who haven't had to work for anything and think that they're cool just because they have a sitting table at some restaurant or whatever the case is. It's just like, these things don't matter. And they make up the entirety of basically this person's personality. So I just didn't care. DNF. I also DNF such sharp teeth. I know that y'all are probably going to be so upset because everyone has loved this book. I know. That's why I was sitting here and I was like, I'm so ready to read this. Let me just knock this out real quick. It even has an Alexis Henderson, which, as we've learned, Birdie's still out on Alexis Henderson with me. But I guess it was that I did not know that this was going to be such a romance novel. Like, the synopsis for this, only at the end of the book, says, this dark comedic love story is a brilliantly layered portrait of trauma, rage, and vulnerability. Throughout the rest of the synopsis, it's talking about the fact that she's turned into a werewolf. So I'm going to think, because you spent 2 paragraphs on explaining this girl is turning into a werewolf, I'm thinking we're learning about her turning into a werewolf. A majority, I got through 40%, majority of the plot line had nothing to do with her turning into a werewolf. There were werewolf portions, like, oh, I found a tuft of hair. Oh, I'm freaking out. I hit that dog. Was that a dog? Type of portions. But for the most part, it was, and all of these people in here are supposed to be like in their 30s, and they read like they're 18. Like, all of them read like they're 18. They talk like they're 18. I had the same issue when I read Payback's a Witch. It was a book, like, this is when I first started getting back reading this, about probably 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago. And I read that book thinking, oh, this is going to be so great because everyone has been saying how great of a book it is. And it felt like everyone in there who was supposed to be in their late 20s read like they were 18. And because of that, everything they did got on my nerves. And that was what was happening in here. All the characters were getting on my nerves. All the decisions they were making felt childish. This kind of one-night stand relationship, will they, won't they, whatever, that was happening between Rory and, like, whatever this guy is that she ends up running into again. It's not even on the back of here. I was just kind of like, this feels like first year of college type of stuff. There's even a Halloween house party where people are getting, like, really drunk. It felt childish. And so I couldn't take it seriously. There was not enough werewolf horror stuff in here happening. It isn't, if you're looking for, and I guess the problem is how it's marketed, in my opinion. I think if they were to market this more like this is a supernatural horror thing, or not supernatural horror, supernatural romance, or even put this in YA, they don't put it in YA. I was talking to another friend because I was like, am I crazy? And she's like, no, I DNF that so fast. So I guess it's not just me, but I was upset because I've seen so many people talk about this. Now, a lot of people told me that Black Sheep is a lot better. And I do have Black Sheep, so at some point I will read it, but it's going to be a no for me, which is upsetting. Because I wanted a werewolf novel, because there's not enough of them. But this is just not the one for me. I would probably recommend it to somebody who was really into romance, and I'd be like, do you want something that's a little weirder? I'd probably recommend this. Because it's not that, I think if it was positioned in that, like, viewpoint or context, I'd go, it's not too bad. But it's like what I was saying with Dungeon Crawler Carl. Like, you know, it depends on the context, and this wasn't sold to me in that context. So instead, it just has a bad taste in my mouth now, and it felt kind of dumb and childish. I know, 2 DNFs, and now something new that I'm doing, which is in progress. I know. And I have 2 that are in progress currently, and I'm kind of sharing them because I don't know if I'll fully share them when I finish them or when that'll even be. But I did really love them enough to kind of insert them in this wrap-up, even though this wrap-up's already longer than what it needs to be. And that was Black Punk Now and Sponsor Magnet. 2 books that are completely different than what I ever read. This is self-help, and this is a nonfiction. I know, it's crazy. Let's start with Black Punk Now. So, this was a part of my official TBR, and it was like one of my physical reads. I did not get to it because, again, as I said in the beginning, this month has been really weird, and I just didn't really have a lot of time to sit down and just physically read this. Also, because I was reading the other book I want to talk about, and that's a physical read. That felt more important than this one, and you'll find out why in just a moment. So I did what I did read, I did enjoy, and I want to continue reading it throughout the year, and at some point I'll finish it and talk more about it. But I did really love so far reading all of these stories that are in here and how it's formatted. Now, I mentioned before that the reason why I did pick up this book is that it was done by James Spooner, who illustrated The High Desert, which is a illustrated graphic memoir, which I really loved, and it talked a lot about being Black and punk rock. And I really wanted to read this because I wanted to know more about the Black punk rock scene. Reading this, I was talking to my mom about it, and I was really interested because I was just kind of like, I think I might be punk and not know it. Like, not traditional or whatever, but in the sensibility. And she was like, oh, yeah, you definitely are. Like, if this was the 80s, like, you would probably dress that way too. But, you know. And I say that because a lot of this is really interesting about Black people within punk rock trying to, that the basis of what punk music really is deeply associated with what any radical really believes, but also anything that any Black person who is truly about abolishment and changing things really needs. I mean, it really is that. And I think learning about everybody's stories in here was also really helpful because everybody approaches the concept and the conversation very differently. And I really did like how, like, reading, starting off with the epilogue portion or the intro, the editor's note, they were talking about how James Spooner was the creator of Afropunk. And he really talks about the fact that it turned into something that is no longer really punk related, that it turned into a fashion show, and that, you know, there aren't even punk rock bands on the set list anymore, and that it stopped being about change and it started being about concert ticket sales and pictures and Instagram looks and stuff. And I really appreciated that because I think there's a lot of people out there who are like, no, Afropunk's about being eclectic and stuff like that. And the thing is that it wasn't started to be that at all, and actually is against kind of what the name itself is. So I think that his honesty about how that change happened was really refreshing, because it was like, no, I got out of it because it was no longer what I created it for. And even now, when people hear about it, they don't think of what it's supposed to be. They think of what it has created anyways, which is proof of the fact that it has morphed into something that wasn't what it was made for. There's also a lot of artwork and drawings, and I even read like a fairy tale story that was like a punk version of Rapunzel, and that was fantastic. Like, it's very, very creative, all of the different ways that they approach some of the things in here, and I really loved reading about it, and I want to take my time with it because I feel like it's very inspiring. I feel like it's very creatively inspiring. In here, they talk about how to create a zine, and I'm positive there's going to be some more people who talk about zines they've created. I think so far we've seen people, I've just read about people who have created their own like labels or events or whatever that are surrounding, you know, people of color within punk music. But I'm really positive that there's going to be some other things in here that are more like we're in a band, or we have, like, I'm seeing some artwork in here and everything as well. So I want to take my time with this. I don't want to just rush through it to say that I read it, because in the short 50 pages that I did read, I was really, really interested. There was even a story of Bobby Hackney Jr. and how his family were basically a bunch of punks. Like, his father and uncle were a part of a punk rock band, and somehow him and his brothers brought that music back, and they started their own punk rock band and actually became a cover band of their dad's band. And I thought that was so much fun and a lot of really, really just interesting and inspiring. So I really do recommend you to pick this up if you want to learn any more about that. But also, I just recommend it, period. Even if you aren't like into punk music, I think it's inspiring to see Black people just be so creative. And this was really that book. And so, again, I don't want to just rush through this. And I'm going to take my time with it. And I don't know, maybe June you'll hear more about what this is, or maybe by the end of the year if I'm chipping away at it that slowly. The last book that I'm covering is one that is definitely a self-help book, and it's very out of my usual comfort zone, but I do think that it's one that I would highly recommend to anybody who is making any sort of content, who is a YouTuber or anything like that. And that is The Sponsor Magnet. So this is by Justin Moore, How to Attract, Price, and Execute Your Dream Brand Partnerships. As y'all know, I've been on here for about 1.5 years or so now, which is crazy now that I'm thinking about it. And I didn't get into this to kind of be like, oh, this is going to be my new career or anything. I mean, sure, if it happens, it would happen or whatever. It really got into it because I wanted to talk to people about the creative things that I was doing, the books that I was reading, just having the space to find other people who cared at all about what I was talking about instead of my friends who just know that I'm yapping at them. And it's been fantastic kind of meeting everybody and talking about it and having this space. But also at the same time, money's always an issue because we live in a capitalist society. And so would it be great to also make some money at the same time that I'm creating things? Absolutely. And I've found that after becoming monetized on here, that is not, you're not going to make money that way. Like every now and then you're going to get $100 check in the mail and it's going to be like, cool, that's really cool that I did that. But it's not going to be actual like change. And from talking to other people who make content, they get a lot of their money from brand partnerships and sponsorships. And I have never really been into that. I'm like, okay, if they reach out, they reach out. But I'm also just like, I don't want to be shoving product at anybody necessarily. And a lot of people have told me, and from seeing other creators, there's of course always a way to do things where they feel legitimate and genuine, because you're using things all the time. So you could get paid to just say like, hey, I'm using this thing, I'd tell you anyways, and they're gonna give me money for it and not be weird about it. And I appreciate that. So I have no clue how to do that. And whenever I would try to YouTube it, all these tech bros would show up who would really just be out there talking about their egos rather than actual actionable items. So I was like, okay, well, I read, so let's read. I went to a Barnes & Noble, and I'm going to be honest with you, there really wasn't anything. And I looked online, and then I found this book, which the title itself said exactly what I was looking for. And the reason why I recommend this book is that it is actually actionable. The advice I have done, I don't annotate or anything. Let me see. But I'm annotating. I'm marking nearly every other page. And it's because Justin Moore is writing his biggest thing and his biggest advice in here, which is why I'm very much like, I'm ready to listen to what you have to say, is I am not looking to make, he's saying this, I am not looking to make the biggest deal and money possible and be an ass about it at all. My biggest thing is having continuous checks coming in and building relationships. And that only happens by treating these sponsors, these brand partnerships, the people behind the computer and behind these things like they're actual people, and building relationships with them so that they're like, oh, I loved working with that person, I'm going to continue throwing them a check. Which makes sense to me because that's how I've ever gotten any book covers I ever designed. The fact that I'm even in the book industry now and design book covers, that was only possible because of building relationships with other people and just treating people like they're normal people. Not, I'm trying to network or I'm trying to get ahead or one of these things. I've always found success from doing exactly that. And that is the basis of what he recommends when doing any of the things he's recommending in here regarding getting sponsorships and brand partnerships and everything. His biggest thing is, I'd rather have a continuous check every month from a brand that I love working with and knowing that money's going to come in the mail than getting a check once that is a huge amount of money, but I'll never work with that company ever again. So I'm going to have to go out and find another company again next month so that I can find another check. And I'm always going to have to do that, and I'm going to be on the wheel instead of building actual relationships and having a continuous income. And that's what I'm looking for. And so far, I think that the advice that's been in here has been amazing and has been really actionable and is really something that you can do and not feel gross about. Like, he's not asking you to do anything like super invasive or taking advantage of anyone or anything like that. And so I really, really appreciated that. And I do recommend this if you are somebody who is in the content area, or even if you're a freelancer, because I feel like a lot of the information that he has, it has to do with just outreach, period. And I think that this is a great, useful thing for anything that is in regards to that. So like, even as a freelancer, I think some of the advice in here is usable for outreach just to land other like gigs. So I thought I would talk about it. I know that this is really out of what I usually talk about, but I'm having a really great time reading it, and I'm taking my time because of course it's oh, you have to do this and then you can do this. So I'm going to take time, of course, reading this, but so far being about like, I don't know, halfway through the book or so, with just a lot of the things that they're talking about, I'm feeling really good about this. And I feel like they're an indie, so I don't know if a lot of people are going to know about this. And I know so many people who are like, I don't know how people make money on here or anything. And this book really kind of gets rid of some of that guessing, in my opinion, because his wife is a YouTuber and this is how they built their income and all of that. So that was something out of the blue, but something I do highly recommend so far. That is it. I didn't make it over. I'm over an hour, y'all. I know. But to be honest, considering how many books we went over, I'm surprised that it's only at an hour. So I had a weird month. It was still, like, looking back, it still was a good reading month because I knew when to say, like, yo, I don't like this book. Or also kind of having these thoughts where I'm like, I'm in between on whether I like this book, or having books where I was like, I absolutely love this book, and it's something completely out of my comfort zone. This month was very diverse reading, for sure, as far as genres are concerned. I mean, I'm reading a self-help book, I read a nonfiction, I read a sci-fi lit RPG, I read, of course, some horror, and some, I read so many. I almost read a romance. I wish that was maybe pitched to me differently. I think it's too late now for me to try and, like, get back to it. And again, like, it was just done really weird. But I hope that y'all enjoyed some of these recommendations and reviews. I hope that you enjoyed this long video. Per usual, my wrap-ups are always in-depth. You will know how I feel about a book. And I hope that if you did, you will subscribe down below. But if you are returning, please like this video if you did like it today. I am looking forward to, as you've seen, Halloween is showing up around here, and it will continue to. So some hauls and things like that are going to start showing up. But I am excited to get reading on my May TBR. It is a long TBR. I think as I keep on proving that I can read more books, I'm adding more books. But I think it's very, again, it's diverse in some of its genres and its reading styles and like its writing styles and tone and everything. So I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward, and I love this new setup I kind of have regarding like setting my TBR and really having a lot of stuff to pick from. Again, you know, if you saw that Q1 recap video, it's been an interesting year so far with reading, and I don't think I say that in the sense of like, oh, I'm just reading so much, but I am. I'm still on track for my goal for the end of the year. If anything, I might be even ahead, which is crazy because when I first started this, I wanted to read 35 books. And now the goal for the end of this year is 65, which is, wow, okay. And even then, from the 35, I went to 50, and I couldn't believe I hit that. And last year was a struggle, and I didn't hit it. But I think that's because I didn't know when to DNF a book. And now I'm learning my lesson from that and feeling a little less guilty about it when I do it. And because I don't feel so much like I need to hoard books anymore for the book nook. Like, okay, you don't need to hoard that. Another book will come. another favorite will come. So I hope that you're looking forward to any like book recommendation videos that are going to be coming up soon. As this is coming out, there will probably be another Halloween hunting video or event video, I believe, is going to be coming out after this one, but we will see. I know that I'm trying to get more and more vlogs back into the channel, but I'm trying not to also overwhelm myself, because as we know, I'll do that, because I've said before, oh, I want to introduce vlogs and do twice a week, and then slowly that tapers off because there's just far too much that's on my plate. So we'll see. But subscribe down below if you like today's video. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.